Welcome to episode 163 of the Forward from 50 podcast, where we interview people over 50 who are pursuing new direction for their lives. It's an opportunity for men and women to tell their stories, their way, and in their own words. I'm Greg Gerber, the founder of Forward from 50, and your host for today's show. Today I'm talking with Randall Kemp. He is a retired corporate leader whose life after 50 has been shaped by service, faith, and a love of music. Randall spent nearly 30 years with Frito-Lay and companies like Starbucks. Then he made the intentional decision to step away from full-time work to care for his mother during her battle with Alzheimer's. That season changed how he thinks about purpose and what it means to truly show up for others. In this conversation, Randall shares how music has been a constant thread throughout his life, from listening to Casey Kasem's Top 40 as a kid to building a collection of more than 8,000 45 RPM records and tens of thousands of songs across albums, CDs, or digital downloads. First, Randall explains how music became his emotional anchor and stress release as a soundtrack that helped him through work, loss, and life transitions. Second, he talks about how serving others, especially caring for his mom, and later by opening his home to two young men aging out of foster care, has given his retirement deeper meaning and purpose. Third, Randall reflects on what it really means to mentor younger generations, why telling stories works better than giving advice, and how faith continues to guide his decisions. Finally, he shares why purpose after 50 is less about leisure and more about intentional service, protecting his calendar, and paying attention to where he is being invited to help. To tell us more about what gives his life meaning and purpose today, please welcome music aficionado Randall Kemp to the show. Thanks for joining me today, Randall. I really appreciate it. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you've been doing after you retired.
First, thanks for the invitation. I appreciate it. Yeah, I've worked. First, I was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and in 1973, my mom looked around the neighborhood and saw too many taverns, and so basically packed up the family, and obviously with my dad, and we came to Arizona, and so I pretty much say I was raised in Arizona. I went to school here, went to Arizona State University, and was one of those people that had no idea what they were going to do with their life and just looked at the college catalog. And my high school counselor said, "Hey, you've got good grades. You should be an engineer." So I went ahead and said, "Okay, pick an engineer." And none of them sounded interesting to me, but I found industrial engineer and basically went after that for 4 years and started interviewed with a lot of companies back in 1986, and fortunately got a job offer from Frito-Lay and worked for Frito for almost 30 years and had a great time, moved every couple years with the company, so definitely had a lot of different types of jobs from operations to finance. And then when I left Frito, right when I turned 50, I basically thought about where do I want to work next, and decided I'm going to work for some kind of newer company and try to understand what the excitement is with some of these new companies. I interviewed with Apple, interviewed with Amazon, and accepted a job at Starbucks and worked there for a while up in Seattle. And then felt a pull to come back to Arizona. My mom was suffering with Alzheimer's, so I decided, hey, I've been blessed my whole life, came back to Arizona, and basically had an opportunity to spend the last few years with her. Went here in Sun City, and after that, then basically found some other things to fill up my time. But so I've been retired now for 11 years.
My goodness, that's cool. And up in Seattle, you were working for Starbucks, but you weren't making coffee, right?
No, actually, the training program required you to spend a week as a barista.
Oh, really?
And I never drank coffee. My first Starbucks visit was on the way to the interview, and I ordered a tea because I knew I had read that they were going to ask me what my favorite Starbucks drink is, so I had to make sure I had one. And so I ordered it. I think it was called Tivana tea or something of that nature, and used that in my interview, and it must have worked.
That's very cool. And so you settled in Arizona after being in Wisconsin. I bet you appreciate that this weekend. I hear Wisconsin is minus 50.
Yeah, I still talk to some folks up there. I have no idea what it's like anymore to be in that kind of cold weather. I have to look for my jacket if I need it. I can't find where I put it. Yeah, I definitely have come to appreciate this. And it gets down in the 50s here, and I'm looking for a sweater or something. Yeah, I've definitely adjusted.
So you retired 11 years ago. What have you been doing since then that gives your life meaning and purpose?
The first few years, obviously, was working with my mom. And I look back and I know I did a lot of things wrong in terms of trying to help her. But I actually moved in with her for a couple of years in Sun City and tried to, we did a bunch of stuff together. She just could continue to enjoy her pool, but also we would go see movies, and she loved frozen custard. And we just try to make the best of those times and try to answer all her questions and help her just wake up, and had a list of things we're going to do that day. And we just actually had a great time those couple of years. She moved into a care facility, and I would spend a lot of time there. Along with my brothers, we would host casino days, or we did this A&W, which is all walkers and wheelchairs washed. And so we would pass an A&W root beer and do these just service events. And I got to know the people at the center. And it took up a lot of time. I enjoyed it, and I was able to spend, because a lot of those folks in those senior centers, no one visits.
Exactly. That's right.
They would come up to me looking for help on their, hey, what is this finance? I got this call from a creditor. What does this mean? And my heart just was open to helping folks. And then it broke your heart, though, too, because almost every week you'd walk in, a new picture would be at the front door saying somebody passed. And so that was very hard as well. But it just gave me more time with my mom, and I directed the activity group to do things that she loved to do, play cards and watch old movies and things of that nature.
That's neat. So you think many of these senior centers would be open to having people come in and lead activities and things like that and just spend time with the residents?
Yeah, my life group, my community group with the first church I attended here, we actually did a couple events there. One was around Halloween, and they always have some events happening, but their budgets are limited. And so, we just came in, and people brought their kids, and their faces just lit up. They could pass out a little candy, or we had music playing, or just some snacks, and you have some conversations the best you can. And they were very open, to answer your question, to have us come and just hold a couple events with them.
When I was living in Wisconsin, in a relatively small town, there were 2 nursing homes there, and both had to hire volunteer coordinators part-time from the middle of November to the end of December, because they were inundated with requests from groups, church groups, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, everybody else wanting to come in and spread the Christmas cheer to the seasoned citizens in those homes. But after Christmas ended, nothing. Nobody came. Nobody expressed an interest in doing that. And I thought that was sad.
Yeah, there were obviously some folks that would come in and play their guitar or do a few things here and there, which was always amazing. And everyone there just loved it. Just having somewhere to go and talk about what's happening at 11 o'clock. Most of the stuff happened in the morning, of course, what was going on that morning. And like I said, that really, my mom passed in 2019. And so those first few years of retirement, people ask, could you have worked at the same time? And I did some interviewing. I had a couple job offers. But you know what? My mom gave up so much for me and my brothers when my dad passed when we were kids. And it was like, you know what? I've been blessed my whole life, as I said earlier. This is an honor to be able to do this for her.
One of the reasons I wanted to interview you is because you have a rather unique hobby that I have not seen from anybody else. To this extent, you have been collecting music for a long time. What got you interested in that?
That's a great question. I just remember we'd leave church, a nice old Lutheran church here in Phoenix, and we'd get in the car, and the Casey Kasem American Top 40 Countdown was playing. And for whatever reason, in my mind would click, okay, this song is moving up fast. It's selling better. Oh, I like that song. I just got into the music, and it was pop music. And you go back to the 70s, it was country, it was R&B, it was pop rock, whatever. Now they have other names for it, for yacht rock and things of that nature. But I just love the music. And at the time, you had Kmart that were selling 45s. I think still have price tags on some of them that says 68 cents on, or Smitty's had 99 cents, which was a grocery store back then. And I would buy records with my paperboy money. I was a Phoenix Gazette paperboy for several years, and which is was an afternoon paper in Phoenix in the summer, so you can imagine what that was like. But I used my money to buy records, where now it's video games or something else. So I would buy 1 or 2 records a week. My mom would, if I helped her with grocery shopping, she'd let me buy a record from Smitty's. And it's just every week a few more. When I started working in high school and then with Frito-Lay, I was buying more as well. It was never so much albums, even though I have a few albums. I love song. I love record, the 45s. And so, yeah, I'm about, last count was about 8,000 45s. And like I said, I don't really grab the 45s anymore to play because I've got iTunes or I've got them on an album or something of that nature. That's what surrounds me in my office is the 45s. It just makes me happy. So what got me into it was, I think, the top 40 countdown, and then just hearing songs on the radio and just wanting to play it again and again. And so you can do that now with streaming and things of that nature. Back then, you had to buy the record.
It's interesting that music has this ability to alter our moods and our whole way of being just after a couple of minutes of listening to it. If you're turning on a particular type of soundtrack or whatever it is that you really enjoy. For me, it's spiritual music. Hymns is what I really like to have. But I know that in your collection, you have everything from vinyl records to CDs to 45s to the 33s. Do you have 8-tracks?
I do have some.
Do you really?
Yes. I have an 8-track player, although I haven't used it in about 10 years. It just makes me nervous every time I put something in because the 8-track itself is disintegrating. I can only imagine what is happening to the tape.
That's a very good point. A fun story for me, I used to go out and buy the number 1 record of the week the day that my daughters were born. Daughter number 1 and daughter number 2, I went out and got 45s. Daughter number 3 arrived about 15 months after daughter number 2, and they didn't have 45s anymore.
Yes.
They had transitioned everything into singles. Singles is what they were called. And that was just weird how quickly that transition took place. And now vinyl is coming back.
Vinyl from a album standpoint, they're testing vinyl as a small single, but it's just so cost prohibitive. They're not 50 cents anymore. And to bring kids into the music buying business, you can't have it be $30.
Right. Who's buying these vinyl records today then? Is it the people in their 50s and above?
Not at all. I have a niece who's I think she's 21 now, and she's got many vinyl records. She loves them. And now she'll buy some CDs occasionally too, because just like we all had to experience getting up and flipping the record over and not touching it and all the things we had to do for albums or 45s. Yeah, no, she owns several albums. And so, yes, there is definitely, you can't say nostalgia to a 21-year-old, but there is something about having the lyrics, having the liner notes, learning a little bit more about the artist and truly being able to be a fan of a person's music.
Well, that's a good point. I didn't think of that. I do remember those things that they included with the records that got you into it a little bit more than you would if you were just downloading somebody's song.
And I think to your point earlier, music and listening to music has always been my release. I've never been much of a drinker, that's a bad day at work. It was the music playing loud, and depending upon the song, I would have to roll up my window to not embarrass myself. But it was always a way for me to have a release. And even with the 2 guys that are in the house now, they make fun of me that I come home and I turn on an old song and I'm listening to Tie a Yellow Ribbon on my computer, and they're looking at me funny. And it's, you know what? It calms me down. It brings me back to other days or other times, or just reminds me that whatever is going on today isn't going to last forever, because here's a song that's 50 years old.
That's right. So you said you had about 8,000 45s. About how many actual albums would you say you have? It's got to be thousands as well.
Yeah, I'm well over 10,000, which is embarrassing, to be honest with you, because someone says, look what you could have done with that money. But at the time, you buy 1 or 2, you go to Tower Records, and you're just buying 1 or 2, except now I'm old.
Right.
And they've just piled up. But at the time, it was just, oh, hey, Fleetwood Mac has a new album out. I'm going to go buy it. And I'm going, look at this one. You just don't have that anymore in terms of going to be able to shop for new music. I don't stream, which people think is really crazy. I just have enough. I got 10,000 on iTunes and between my albums, my CDs and 45s. I got enough music, and I'll buy new music on iTunes because for me, this sounds really crazy, I just feel like I want to reward the artist for something I like. And you guys you did a great job. job on this song. I'm buying it. I'm not just going to play it a million times on Spotify and have you earn 3 cents.
Yep. I have a bone to pick with iTunes. Remember when they first came out, it was all about take your music anywhere.
Yes.
And they encouraged us to take all of our CDs and just upload them into the iTunes cloud so we could listen to them wherever. And so I did that with the whole collection. I had thousands of songs in there. Then they updated one of their releases and it wiped out the collection. It would only accept the music that was purchased in the iTunes store. And it's like, what? All of these favorite things I love to listen to are gone forever.
You have to be really careful. I changed my Apple computer from one Apple to another, lost my iTunes, and the first Apple Care person told me that I'll have to repurchase all my iTunes.
Oh my.
And so I said, can I talk to somebody else? Because iTunes was on 6 versions later. And then they said, well, you know what? No, we can do this. And they had me do some crazy stuff in my computer. And all of a sudden, all my iTunes popped back up.
Oh.
So it doesn't disappear. They're in there. You just got to find them. And I was scared to death at the time.
Oh, yeah.
5,000 songs that repurchase. What do you mean repurchase?
Yeah. How much have you spent over the years to have 20,000 albums and 45s and CDs and things like that?
We all have our vices. So, yeah, it's probably 6 figures, to be honest.
Oh, my.
But again, over 40 years of working. So it's one of those pieces that, hey, when I eat out, it's a sandwich or it's something of that nature.
Exactly. That's right.
So it's the way I treat myself was going to Tower Records or not looking around iTunes or Twitter to find out what artists are releasing new albums.
Okay, and so you're still collecting.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm not buying as many CDs or albums. I'll buy occasionally, especially my favorites, but I'm still doing iTunes. I probably purchase 300 to 400 iTunes a year.
Wow. Where do you get the albums then? Are you looking at garage sales and things like that?
Oh, this is embarrassing. I still have about 10 boxes in my garage just from neighbors bringing them to me, saying, hey, you'll like it. It's great, but how many copies of Grease can one person have? But I so appreciate it. And I had the albums I bought and then the albums other people have given me that, I think are really cool. And they're in a different part of the vinyl room. That's embarrassing to say. And from an album standpoint, I almost don't need to buy them because people have given them to me. But if I buy them, to answer your question, I either go on Amazon or a lot of stores now are selling vinyl. Now they're just selling the popular ones. So if you want something a little older or something different than the top 10 or whatever, you might have to go somewhere else. But they're out there. You just have to look for them.
What are some of your favorite, what would be well-desired or famous collectibles?
That's an interesting, you use the C word and collectible. And I'm like, it never was meant to be a collection. It was just meant to be fun. And then eventually somebody started, people would come over and say, wow, what a collection. Oh, what's that all worth? I don't know. I never considered it a collection. Right. And then all of a sudden, now I'm getting older. People are like, who are you giving your records to? And I don't think about it that way. I'm not sure exactly in terms of the value of the collection or anything of that nature. But for me, like I said, it started out just being fun, and I'm going to continue doing it that way. Okay. My guess is someone will someday sell it as a one big lot rather than I see people trying to sell a specific song or something of that nature. It's now here's a collection of 45s, mostly from the 70s and 80s. And then to your point, cassette singles from the early 90s and then CD singles through the 90s. And I could definitely take you down 40, 50 years of pop music.
Is there a difference between vinyl and digital?
For me, it's so funny because people would ask me when I was younger, what kind of speakers do you have? You love music. What kind of speakers? I will buy the best speaker that my ear can tell the difference. Why spend more money on a speaker if I can't tell that it's people pretend, oh, that sounds so good. I can't really tell any difference. So I'm just going to buy this one. And to me, with the vinyl and the CDs, I like the CDs because I have a little more flexibility in how I play them. But in terms of sound, no, I'm not one that says, oh, it's such a more fuller sound. I'm sure you'll meet plenty of people who will be really good at describing the difference. But for me, I don't really spend a lot of time going one's better than the other.
Exactly. I can't really tell a difference myself. But you had mentioned speakers, and it's funny that you said that because I had a good friend of mine when I was living up in Wisconsin who was an audiophile, and he had these stereo systems that were thousands of dollars.
Yes.
And the speakers were 3 feet high and things like that with woofers and subwoofers and all of that. Now you get almost the same sound with a tabletop device that can connect via Bluetooth to your iPhone.
Absolutely. I just bought a new set of speakers for my computer at home, and I think they were like $50. And I think they're plenty loud. Everything's nice and clear.
Right.
I could have spent a lot more.
Exactly. Who are your favorite artists?
That is always a tough question for me. You've got to do it by decade almost.
Okay.
And because in the 70s, I'm probably going to land on Fleetwood Mac or even someone like Barry Manilow. If you land on the 80s, like I said, I'm a huge pop person, so I'm going to fall on George Michael and Wham, or I'm going to fall on even some of Madonna or there's even some rock artists as well. I know people won't argue with me this isn't rock, but like Starship or Bon Jovi or something of that nature. And then you get in the 90s, I'm Matchbox 20 or even, I think the 90s is where the conversion changed, that some of the best pop music was coming out of country radio. The Shania Twains and the Tim McGraws and things of that nature. All of a sudden I'm listening to a lot of country because I think that's some of the best pop. And then you get into the 2000s, early 2000s, I think the best pop music was coming out of Christian contemporary music. The Mercy Me's of the world or the Brandon Heaths of the world. To me, those were I'm Not Who I Was. That's a great pop song in my mind. Yes, it's a great Christian song, a nice, great message, but that's pop to me. So I transitioned to different styles of music as well. So yeah, so the 80s, 90s, I'm into Matchbox 20 or Shania Twain. And you know what, in the last 25 years, it has ranged from Carrie Underwood to, I'll go in the country with Carrie Underwood or Hunter Hayes. If you go into pop music or whatever, you could talk The Weeknd or you could talk Bruno Mars. If you go into a little more of the rock music, I'm one of those few that will actually admit to liking Nickelback or something of that nature. So to me, it's always been about the song. The song is what captures my heart. And people invite me to concerts all the time, and I'm so appreciative. But for that, back in the 80s, for that $20, now it's $100. I'd rather buy their box set
Exactly.
and listen to it for the next 20 years.
That's exactly right.
Rather than have the person next to me scream at the top of their lungs for the whole 2 hours, whatever, and be off key. And I feel like I'm American Idol trying to critique them. But for me, it's not about the concerts or even the artists. It's more about the song. And so the list I was giving you, I'm thinking about people who I have a lot of their records.
Okay.
So that must be who I like.
Who's got the best era for music? 50s, 60s, 70s?
I'm one of those people that always think, boy, was I born a little at the wrong time? Because for me, it's all about mood. But if I just want to come home and relax, then it's 70s. But number one, the average song was popular for 3 months. And so you had such a variety of music and a variety of messages. And yeah, there's always secret messages in the songs. But when I was 15, I didn't know what that all meant. So I'm singing along the songs that my mom would be looking at me funny. But so for me, the 70s is where I probably hang out the most. But on my iTunes, I'll do these playlists, and I'll do a rock mix. And literally, it's over the course of 50 years. It's not just one decade, or I'll do a sing-along mix or something that I can scream along to if I'm driving somewhere. And so I'll do these mixes, and it's not tied to a specific era. It's the soundtrack of my life. Every song, every decade brings back a weird memory or a good memory or whatever, but it brings back memories. Back to my mom. I just remember when people would come in and play their guitar to the senior folks, as bad as her memory might have been at the time, she knew all the words to all the songs, whether it was a hymn or whether it was You Are My Sunshine or whatever song it was, she was singing along and loving every minute.
That's incredible. You talked about variety, and you're right. I think there was a better variety back in the 1970s, which is why I think you see these reunion tours still going on with people who are performing in their 60s and 70s, and they're still popular today. I don't think you can remember people who had hits in the early 2000s, who they were today. I don't know if they're still out there touring.
No, a lot of truth to that. Or you either see them or you see their kids performing. But either way, those are some of the concerts I typically will go to. They're at the casinos and it's a tribute band. Or
Yes.
Some of my best concert memories was seeing Helen Reddy in a little bar in Reno, Nevada. It was probably 100 people. And then afterwards, she came out and autographed albums. Mm-hmm. And that to me is one of the best nights of my life. Meeting Helen Reddy, having her sign, and I brought her greatest hits album. I had her signed, but I also bought her new album so she would feel good. But it was one of those things that's the concert I want to go to. Mm-hmm. I don't want to go to 50,000 people.
Oh, there you go. That makes sense. Did you see the movie Sung Blue?
Have not seen that yet.
Put it on your list.
Okay, I will.
You'll love it. When you talk about a soundtrack of your life, have you ever created one of those? That is, I would think that would be a playlist kind of thing, but
I created one. I worked in a Frito-Lay facility in Rancho Cucamonga, California, and I worked there actually for 5 years, which I think was the longest time I ever was in one location. And when I left, I'm confessing all my sins here, I would make a Christmas mix, first cassette, then CD over the 5 years for everybody in the office. So I'd have to make 30 of them. And when I left, I did a soundtrack to the last 5 years. So that's the only thing that comes to mind, that some of my favorite songs over the last 5 years. And of course, I made it really silly, but some of my favorite songs, Bop from 97, or I threw a couple Christian rocks because that's when Michael W. Smith released Worship during that time. And I love that CD, a couple great songs from there as well. So I made a soundtrack that would remind me forever of working in that facility, in that plant. So that's the only time I ever made one. But I think you look at some of my playlists, I actually, since I was a little kid, I kept track of every time I played a song. iTunes does that for you now, but when I was a kid, I would hash mark. I still have hash marks from when I was a teenager every time I played a song. So I could always tell you what my favorite song was of a particular year because I played that one the most.
When you were a teen or tween, did you pretend to be a disc jockey?
Absolutely. That was my dream job. Not just to replace Casey Kasem, but with a good friend of mine, we looked at buying a radio station. Good thing we didn't. Now looking back now, but how do we buy a radio station? One year I actually put an ad in Billboard magazine to hire me. It wasn't so much a disc jockey. I want to be the one who picked the songs. I want to be the programmer. And nobody wants to hear me talk. But I just thought, okay, this was a great job. But I mentioned going to college and looking through the college catalog, and I'm like, I'm going to starve. I don't want to starve. And so that's why I chose the engineer instead.
Okay. Which is good now that you're in your 60s. You
Yes.
are back into music, or you're still involved in music.
Still
to the
involved,
point
yes.
It's a fun activity. So it's part of your life, and you have time now to pursue it.
Absolutely. And like I said, the two young men that live with me, not long ago, one of them came up to me and said, I heard this great old song. You got to hear it. And he played for me Break My Stride by Matthew Wilder. I'm going, that's from my college years. But yeah, that's a great song. I agree. It was one of my favorites that year. And I just love when and typically it's through commercials or through movies or TV shows that they'll hear some classic song. And absolutely, yeah, and I push them, go listen to some older music. It's like the music being released today isn't bad. Not all of it's for me, but you've got to open up. When I was younger, I was listening to also Dean Martin and Frank Sinatra and people that obviously predated me, of course, the Beatles and things of that nature. But it's like I just was hungry to hear different types of music.
That's right. I've always liked the big bands from the 1940s, the Glenn Miller Orchestra.
Absolutely.
Like yeah, that's all. I will turn to that for easy listening all the time.
Yeah, In the Mood. Actually, one of the kids at the house, Oleg, I got him the Frank Sinatra Christmas album. And I was thinking Tony Bennett. I'm thinking somebody who has the big band behind them. Just one day driving around and then somehow through my iTunes, a couple old Frank Sinatra, Let's Fly Away or Come Fly With Me, I think it's called. Some of his older songs came on and he loved them.
Oh,
this
that's
is a
neat.
young man who loves rap, but he loved that old classic sound. And so I'm going to play some more of this.
As a man of faith, you did open your house to two young men. What prompted you to do that?
Toward the end with my mom, the church I was going to, they were starting a coffee shop called Cultivate Coffee on 7th Avenue and Dunlap, and they were basically hiring at-risk youth. And they asked me, hey, do you want to come down and help us? And whether it be, now granted, people knew I worked at Starbucks, but I still knew nothing about coffee. I knew how to deliver it. I didn't know how to make it. And we would have different coaching sessions, whether it be how to balance your checkbook, which I know doesn't really matter anymore, but how to manage your finances, how to deal with conflict, how to give feedback to somebody without getting them upset. So did that for a while, loved it. And it wasn't that close. Definitely loved working with it was not just at-risk youth, which were pretty much either the local high school recommended them or from a local group home, foster kids, but it was also some refugees as well. I tried to mentor them the best I could, and we practiced job interviewing, and they worked at the coffee shop to get some experience and make a little money, and would then take the kids I worked with, I would take them back to the group home. Would stop at McDonald's for a milkshake or something and on the way home and talk a little bit. And I knew them since they were 16, 17 years old and obviously enjoyed that. It just, the distance and the travel was starting to eat at me because I live out by Lake Pleasant versus downtown Sunny Slope. After my mom passed, I just vividly remember just walking around praying and asking God, what's next? I feel good about the last few years in terms of, hey, you asked me to do this, and I felt it was the right thing to do. What next? And COVID hit. And I found myself with these kids. They would get kicked out of school because they had a stomach ache, and couldn't come back until they had a negative test or something. So, okay, here, I'll come get you. We'll go get you a test, and you don't miss 6 weeks of school. And because some of the teachers could care less, some of the teachers cared a little bit more. I definitely got closer to them once COVID hit. And basically, once they hit 18, they're not kicked out. I don't want to misrepresent that, but they are definitely anxious to leave, but yet also really don't have that support structure, that safety net that, the previous 2 years, they didn't even finish school for that matter. They just basically passed for logging in on their computer at the group home and, okay, you pass. So it was challenging. And so what it boiled down to is they both came to my house in different ways. One tried living on their own for a little bit, but it just had a little difficulty with roommates and things of that nature. Another one tried a different place to live. The rules and they're not going to be perfect 18-year-olds. And it drives me crazy. I wasn't a perfect 18-year-old, but I wasn't that bad. But it's like there are no perfect 18-year-olds. They're going to push a little bit. And he struggled with that place. So at different times, I invited them in, which was really tough. So now one's 23, one's about to turn 23. They're both figuring out their careers, and one's got a serious girlfriend, and the other is very much wanting to dedicate his time to trying to get his making sure he does get a chance to launch his career, his life. It's been 3 to 4 years now, and no regrets. But it's definitely, I'm not exactly in a place where I thought I would be, but I wouldn't give it up for anything.
That's really cool. So is the younger generation open to getting advice from geezers like us?
The short answer is no.
No.
I think what it boils down to is that they don't necessarily understand that AI today is not much different than computers were when I was in college. We were all being told that computers are going to take our jobs and there's going to be no jobs. And my first job was putting in the VIN number for 1,000 Frito-Lay trucks in a old Lotus 123 computer. Yeah, it's so great. It's like, I'm not sure what my future holds with these computers. And they've got that same struggle a little with AI. But in terms of just everyday advice, I've pretty much stopped giving advice. Most of the time, I tell stories.
Oh.
And I think that is a little more effective.
I bet you're right.
And because what it boils down to is I'll show them a picture of me at 22 or 23. And unfortunately, I'm wearing a suit because I was going to interview, and that's the only picture I have. Yeah, look at you. I was the same place you are. I had no idea. I had $50 in my bank account. So I convert. Now, rather than just say, you need to do this, I've got to say, what happened to me? Or let me tell you a quick story what happened to me. Both of them are incredibly sharp and smart, and they'll never admit it. But occasionally they'll say something, and I'm going, that's what I told you last week. It sunk in. And so for the most part, the answer to your question is no, you just can't give advice. And I think it's because growing up, they both found their way into the foster system in a different path. But growing up with a variety of adults that really don't have any investment in you whatsoever, it's a job to them to care for you or look for you or whatever, feed you, and they get paid for it. And now be with a person who basically loves you, cooking for you, is welcomed you to the family, and my own family has welcomed them into the family as well. It's a little bit different. And I'm hoping over time they're going to continue to grow and realize that I don't want you to be me, but help you become the best version of you.
That's a great idea, that telling stories would be a very effective way to get a message across, by telling stories of your own life on what I did that worked, what I did that failed, what my friends did that got them on the wrong track, etc. Those kinds of things would sink in over time, and far more better than, okay, I'm going to tell you what to do. Here's my advice, take it or leave it kind of thing. That's a great idea.
Yeah, and I realize that's not a new idea. A lot of people have probably made a career out of that. But for me, because step one with these kids, to be honest, I call them kids, I'm sorry, these young men, is they both had to do serious editing of their friends and realizing what is a friend.
Right.
Because back in a group home or in a different setting, a friend has a different definition, and a friend would never ask you to do something you shouldn't be doing. So I think just helping them re-experience or better understand, you know what, yeah, right now you might be down to 0 or just one friend or something of that nature, but what you're doing is going to pay off in the long term.
Exactly.
And when you welcome people in your life, and because you want a friend that serves you as much as you serve them. So let's go ahead and let's take the time. And how do you make friends? How do we keep friends? And how do you know the person is truly a friend versus trying to get something from you?
And how to network.
Absolutely.
Because it's power of who, basically, to get things that you want and the jobs that you want. Most of the time, by the time they're posting the job online for many other companies, they've got somebody hired because they've done the networking. They know somebody who knows somebody, and they make that connection.
And both of them have a job or two through networking.
Okay.
You know, sometimes they don't work out, but whether it be a neighbor or my realtor, or I've got some great friends in my life, and because they know these two guys are important to me, I'm not sure how it ended up being these two from all the people that I worked with. But like I said, God put them on my heart, and I am absolutely committed to helping them figure out what the past is and what to retain and what to let go of, and then get excited about the future, and don't let some videos or some YouTube crazy people get you discouraged about what the future holds. I had no idea what the 1990s were going to look like, but what I knew is there is power and hope. There's power and faith, and let's go to bed excited about tomorrow, not worried about it.
Is there an area where young people need help the most? And we hear stories all the time about especially young men failing to launch, still staying with their parents, etc., well into their 30s and 40s.
That's a great question. Now, my perspective is fairly limited because I just, from the coffee shop and then having to live with me, for me, they both can be real cynical and real passionate about their fear and distrust of leaders, of the government, of companies. And there's a level of, I think it's healthy to be a little bit cynical or a little bit skeptical of things in life, because we've all been burned on things. But there just isn't a lot of faith and trust in people. And I'm all for you've got to earn trust, but I'm also for sometimes you need to give the benefit of the doubt. And I'll let you burn me once if I feel like I'm going to be part of your life and we're going to be friends. And it's okay, you're going to burn me once, gotcha, but not twice. And it's unfortunately, I think both these guys, in terms of just from my perspective, and I can't, again, not the whole generation, but they, from government to leaders to businesses, they just are very, very negative about some of this. And then it's all through videos, it's through movies, it's through some just real negative inputs that they've got over many years.
I can see where that would develop, especially in a foster care environment. There's no loyalty there anymore. It's just, what can you do for me today? Or what have you done for me lately? And that's it. Then they get into a job, and used to be that you worked for a company for decades, right? And then retired with a good pension, but now you work for a little while, and then boom, you're called in one day and automatically dismissed for some reason that you don't know. You're being downsized, the jobs are being outsourced. It's a very confusing time. And then financially, when we were in our early 20s, it was still possible for people to live on their own. In fact, we could go to college. It was possible back then to work a part-time job or full-time job in the summer and earn enough money for your college tuition and your room and board, and then have a part-time job during school to cover the fun things and your food and stuff like that. You can't do that anymore.
Yeah, and I think the piece that I spend a little more time on lately with the guys is how to sacrifice to get what you want. In my career, I did a lot of jobs I didn't want to do because I felt it was going to lead me to somewhere I wanted to go. I think in some ways, both these guys have sacrificed a lot already since they were 5 years old or whatever it may be, and just are looking for that instant success. And hey, sometimes your boss is going to be horrible. Sometimes they're going to ask you to do things you don't want to do. Sometimes it's hard to get up in the morning. You don't think I still struggle with getting up sometimes? I do. I don't complain about it, but yeah, no, there are struggles in this life. And why is it that you think existing means you should succeed?
Exactly.
That's not capitalism. That's not this country. And I shall share stories about my family or mine, although they'll roll their eyes because they just see the result of the work. They don't see the 80 hours a week or the weekends or the being in your room screaming because something didn't happen the way you wanted it to.
Yep.
They don't see that. So I think that's the other challenge right now for me is it's, you know what? You're going to have to earn success. Success it's not a light switch. It's not a degree. There's plenty of people with degrees that are making less than you guys are making. So it's more you got to put a plan together, be disciplined, be thoughtful, be faithful, and execute.
If you could turn the clock back, is there anything you'd do differently?
I would have enjoyed so many more times than I did. I think, right or wrong, in my career, I allowed myself to get pulled into the whole concept of nobody hears yesterday's applause. And every day, I wanted to be a little better than I was the day before. I wanted to, whether it be productivity or whether it be scores on my feedback from my teammate, from my team, or selling a little bit more, or having the P&L be a little stronger than it was yesterday. I just never spent as much time recognizing yesterday. Was too much wound up about how am I going to make tomorrow work. Now, that might have helped me succeed, but I think, boy, looking back, especially when you retire and you start unpacking stuff from your old offices and whatever, I remember this. Oh yeah, that was that was fun. Or that was a good year. You just don't spend time thinking about yesterday and looking back. Any regrets? It's more that for me is, hey, I had a great run at both companies, or a great run in my 30s for even my personal life or whatever. Why didn't I take more time to enjoy it?
Exactly. So now you're taking time to enjoy your life in your 50s and your 60s? I'm sorry.
Yes and no. I'll say this. I've got a lot of people questioning. You get those questions like, oh, you're not golfing? What did you shoot? It's not even golfed in a while. You're retired. Where you traveled? How many cruises have you been on? You know what? I haven't been on a cruise. And so there's a lot of people asking questions. You know what? You spend 30 years being a servant leader. You don't retire and turn that off.
Right.
I still feel I'm here on this earth to serve, and I'm blessed. There's no regrets there. I am excited to work with these young men. I'm excited when they decide to take that next step, or one will probably get married or whatever the case may be. I'm not sure if I'll continue this as much as it is. I know I got to stay busy and serve. And I've had people say, why don't people give me ideas? This is all volunteer. None of this is paid. It's more, let me find ways to serve that I'm uniquely blessed in a way to do.
Exactly. You're blessed with the income and you don't have to worry about the money. So why not give back to others?
That doesn't mean I don't worry. Yeah. I mean, when you turn 50 and when I retired early, I knew I wanted to go back to work. I had way too much energy to sit, but you've got to, first thing you do is take a look at your financial situation. Okay. Can I do? What can I do? What's that income going to look like for the next 40 years? And you just never really know. There's a lot of questions you'll never have the answer to, but you can make sure you're making smart decisions, because the worst thing that could happen is me to commit to these two young men that I'm going to help you, and then say, oh, you know what, I'm out of money. So you got to move out. I got to rent this room out.
Exactly.
No, again, it never leaves your mind. And I try to set an example to them. We're not going out to eat every night. I just put a beef stew in the crock pot before I came here. So that is absolutely something I need to pay attention to, and I need to make sure they see is important. Life isn't about not worrying about pulling the credit card out.
Do you have any advice for people over 50 or maybe struggling with what they could do to give their lives more meaning and purpose?
I would just probably go back to say what I commented earlier. First thing, make sure your financial house is in order, or understand your situation before you start making plans. Because I've had too many friends make plans and then realize I wasn't prepared for this, or I really couldn't do this. You spend time praying about it, really thinking about what are your strengths, what helps you get up in the morning, what's going to fulfill you. Playing, for me, doesn't fulfill me. Just whatever, going on trips. I travel too much in my career. I still don't want to go to an airport. Pray about it, and then look for those invitations. I very much believe that if I ask God, where do you want me? He's going to open a lot of doors, and you've got to get yourself out there. Accepting the invitation from my pastor to help at the coffee shop, or accepting the invitation from the pastor from my church to help with how to help people serve inside the church, or just listen to what people are saying. It might be an opportunity for you to step up, because nobody knows you in your heart more than yourself. And so if you're going to ask for help to find those opportunities, listen to what's happening in your life, and then go after where you stay in your comfort zone, I guess is what I'm saying as well. Is a lot of people you might have some people asking you for help, but I'm going to be very uncomfortable doing that.
That's right.
So stay in your comfort zone. And the last thing I would say is protect your calendar. It's like you're retired. A lot of people think you've got time for stuff and things of that nature. So you know what? This is what my priorities are between the guys, or between a couple of things I'm doing for myself. So I got my calendar filled. Here's some open time I have where I can serve outside my plan. So protecting your calendar, I think, is important as well.
That's very good advice. How can people connect with you if they would like to chat with you about music or life?
I would say I don't do social media except for Twitter, and my Twitter handle is tied to music. I don't post political opinions or pictures of myself or whatever. Nobody would follow me. What I do is I post. Something will happen in the music industry, and I'll post about it, and I'll post an old record if an artist or an old song is remade and released, and I've got the original. I'll post that and I'll talk about it. So 99% of my Twitter is music.
Okay.
Or I'll post the music I've just bought and listening to, because I'm dying to hear what else is out there. Some new albums from artists from the 60s and 70s nobody hears about because it's not in Billboard, or you can't find it easily in iTunes. But like one of my favorite albums last year was by Burton Cummings. He's from the Guess Who, and had that solo hit Stand Tall. He had a great album last year. I probably would have never found it if he or somebody who works for him didn't post it on Twitter. Hey, releasing an album. Cool. And I loved it.
So Twitter is the only social media account that you have?
I don't do Facebook, Instagram,
that's okay.
Any of that stuff. And Twitter is strictly music, and that's going to be the best bet to find me.
Thank you very much for sharing your story with me today. I really appreciate it.
Likewise, I appreciate the invitation, and this has been a lot of fun.
Randall Kemp is a man whose love for music runs as deep as his commitment to serving others. What stands out most about Randall is how intentionally he has shaped his life after 50, whether caring for his mother, volunteering in senior living communities, or mentoring younger people. Randall sees purpose as something to be lived out quietly but consistently. Music remains a daily source of joy for him. It calms him, connects him to memories, and reminds him that no season of life lasts forever. For Randall, songs are more than entertainment. They're emotional landmarks and reminders of who he has been and who he continues to become. If you'd like to connect with Randall, the best way to do that is on Twitter, where he shares almost exclusively about music. He posts about classic songs, new releases from longtime artists, and music discoveries that might otherwise go unnoticed. That's all for this week's show. If today's episode resonated with you, please consider how your own passions and experiences might be pointing you toward a greater meaning and greater purpose in this season of life. If you need help in that regard, I'm happy to have a free brainstorming session with you to get you started down a new path. simply contact me at www.forwardfrom50.com. Thank you for listening.